Welcome to the Amplify to Seven Figures podcast, where we look inside the mind of seven-figure entrepreneurs to see how they amplify their business and amplify their life. Let's welcome today's guest. Today's guest has signed 2 publishing deals on 2 different continents and navigated the world of becoming a best-selling author twice. He's worked with hundreds of authors from around the world to achieve their dream of writing and publishing a book, in addition to being featured in over 50 media outlets for his best-selling book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur. He's also been an entrepreneur his entire adult life and holds degrees from, get this, University of California, Berkeley, National Taiwan University, and Beijing Normal University. Please welcome the founder and publisher for Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. He's helping change the world with your words, Jesse Krieger. How you doing, Jesse?
Hey, what's up, Paul? Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Super awesome. So, Jesse, you are big when it comes to books, right? How does a book help your business?
Yeah, great question. From my view, a book should be and can be your best business development tool, in the sense that when you really take the time to create a book that's not just a book, but rather the book, the defining statement on your area of expertise, that's how we step into our authority. And that's how people that see us and discover us through our books for the first time can check that know, like, and trust box, because you've been sharing your best strategies and story and experience over the course of 170 plus pages, perhaps. And when that's done correctly, it makes it so easy for somebody to raise their hand and say, well, that's who I want to help me accomplish, fill in the blank, whatever that book is about. And that's the positioning piece that a book really enables. We can certainly go more into that.
Yeah, so let's go a little bit more into that. So, you've got different ways with the book. Some people are like, oh, so do I just sell the book on Amazon, or do I give it out to friends and family? Or so what is the main, because I've heard some people say, oh, it's like a business card, but like a really good business card. So what's the main way you're using your business and teach your clients and students to use a book for leverage, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess just a little bit on, my businesses. We're really in the business of long-term partnership with entrepreneurs that are writing books, doctors, health and wellness experts, and self-help spiritual leaders as our 3 main content buckets. So much more so than like just having a course or telling somebody what to do and then sending them on their way. We look for and sign and partner with as a publishing partner with these people, ideally, in some cases, for many more than just one book. In some cases, we're up to 3-4 books with our authors. So to be in that longer term partnership, we can take that longer view of, okay, let's spend 5-6 months to really get the content dialed in, get it right, get clear on the offers that you want to emphasize in your business over the next 1 to 2 years, and then refocus on the book promotion and how to get it in as many people's hands as possible, creating an easy bridge from that book and from those book promotions into the next step in that person's business, sales funnel, consultation, exploring working together. And that's all possible within the book, but that allows the author to just be on message and go on podcasts and talk about the things that the show host wants to talk about and that they're passionate about, and then let people kind of sort themselves into going those next steps. So it's like laying out the pathway of how you could go all the way to the most high-priced, high-delivery service that somebody offers, but knowing that people could just take 1 or 2 perhaps lower price offers, or if they just got the book and nothing else, that alone could be a transformative experience for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you see a lot of people on television and those like, hey, we've just got this new book that's just come out. So how does having a book leverage to get yourself in the media?
Well, having a book and holding it up on national TV is the little secret sauce that sells tons and tons of books, which is why you see most talk show hosts, news anchors, people like that will use their platform to just give a 30-second pitch for their book and consistently find their way onto the New York Times bestseller list as a result. So that's at the top end of the spectrum, where you have let's say a national platform or somebody, a way in which you can reach 1 million people or so reliably. And with that, it's pretty easy to get down to like selling thousands of books or 10,000 plus books. But for somebody that's either using this book as a way to build their new audience or to leverage the audience they have, but aren't at that um, top rung of the ladder necessarily, it's an opportunity to go on shows, to be on media, to do guest articles and blogs and any modality of training and sharing that's strategically building their audience in the process of being really on message with what that book is about and perhaps what that associated business offering looks like.
It always strikes me as a interesting thing that can open a lot of doors. Now, something from a personal experience, and we were just speaking before the show started, is like I wrote a book when we had a bridesmaids dress business, and we took everyone's wedding questions. So we did this Facebook Live show for 64 weeks, and we took all their questions and put it into a book, 40,000 words. And then I never launched it because I ended up moving on to another business. But basically, kind of long story short, but we nearly went bankrupt because we didn't know our numbers properly, as you do. However, like let's say you've got an asset there, and you've done a lot of the legwork, and you sat with it. Like, firstly, why do you think people quite often get halfway through a book and don't finish it? And then secondly, can you still use that as an asset, even if that's your main focus anymore?
That's a really good question. My honest thought on the subject is when we start writing a book, when we start to put ourselves out there as, let's take a step back, the root word of authority is author. And so authoring a book on a subject is stepping into authority in this field, in this space. That will call up something within us that is perhaps in opposition to that stated goal. So I'm not psychoanalyzing whatever happened with your business, but if you get partway through the process and then something breaks and falls apart, then perhaps there wasn't that alignment from the beginning that you want to be doing and scaling this business for the next 2, 3, 5 years. So the book is that amplification piece to really lean into this topic, area of expertise and authority. But before it's done and it comes out, in almost all cases, something will come up for examination and to be cleared that would prevent that outcome of much bigger awareness stepping onto a larger platform. And you're nodding your head, maybe there's something resonant in your experience, but I see this across even with the most accomplished people. And if I were to say so, it's like everybody thinks that it's just specific to them. Oh my God, why is this specific thing happening to me? But it's indicative of stepping into that authority and having to, ascend the next level within their own development in the process. In this sense, it's a very tricky thing. I don't really know too many people that have like stayed focused in the book publishing game for a long time beyond just training and here's an how-to thing, because it brings up the same for me in partnership with people to help work through and unlock whatever it is that's holding them back from stepping into that next level of authority. It's actually deeply transformational when approached from that perspective. Whereas if people say, oh, I'm just going to bang out a book in a weekend and just turn on a recorder, get it transcribed on Fiverr and slap it on Amazon, you may be able to do that without experiencing real internal opposition. But somewhere in that process, are you going to get on 50 podcasts and lay it all out on the line to talk about that thing that you slapped together in a weekend? So there's this chicken and egg thing about being ready to step up to the next level and then girding ourselves to really push through or climb up and over whatever comes up in that process.
Yeah, and there's a saying that I get asked by my mentors a lot as well. Is they always say, and we ask our team, is, "Are you 100% proud of it?" And if you're not, then don't put it out there, because, like you say, you're amplifying the wrong thing. If you say, "Hey, go and look at this mediocre thing that I've created,"
I think that's pretty on point. And for that same reason, the final 5 to 10% of finishing a book, the final editing, the final setting of everything can take almost as much time as the first 90, because it's that little fine-tuning process that results in something where you can now say it's done, feel proud about what it is, and shift gears to telling everybody in the world about it. That shift to telling everybody in the world about it is difficult to do if there's some secret shame or something that you know could have been better, or that you didn't really tell the full story as it could have been told. You get the idea.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of like building a house. So you spend so much time building the foundations, and you're looking at it, and you're like, "There's nothing there," and then suddenly there's this massive house that's just been built, and you're like, "Wow, that was super quick." And then you're like, "Why are they not selling it yet?" You're like, "It's not finished yet. We've got to put all the fixtures and fittings in it." Is that kind of similar?
On that analogy, and I love a good analogy. If somebody's building a house or a skyscraper, what's the first thing they do? Dig into the earth. They go lower than they even started to set the proper foundation, make sure it's there solid, and then up we go. But that same analogy applies to a book, perhaps. Before we're ready to skyrocket to the next level of success, we've got to take that deeper dive, solidify those foundations. And when we do it right, the interesting thing is that lift almost becomes natural as a result. We don't have to work as much to get increasing concentric circles of exposure when everything's set properly. And to just be plain about the language, because that word of mouth, people see it, they recommend to a friend, somebody sees it and they immediately resonate with, that's the book for me. Those are all a function of having the foundation in place, and then the lift can kind of come very quickly to the external eye.
Yeah, I love the way you built on that analogy as well, even more. So that's fantastic. That's the author within you as well.
Indeed.
So Jesse, what's the best book marketing strategy that you've got? You know, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about writing a book?
I would first say that, unless you're doing self-publishing, if you're going hybrid publisher or traditional publisher, most of the game is played before the book is even launched, meaning before the publication date. And so with that in mind, 2 to 3 months out before the publication date is when you want to really be kind of slamming the gas on pre-sales promotions. Now, that can take a number of forms. It could be a podcast tour where maybe if I was doing it right now, we'd do this interview and I'd have an incentive where, hey, if you pre-order a copy of my book, I'm going to give you this bonus and this bonus and this. So now the incentive is there to go pre-order a $15, $20 book. And now I'm logging those sales in advance of the release date through whatever mechanism I'm doing. But on the back end, every book that's pre-sold with a good publishing partner can turn into 3 to 5 book orders, purchase orders from retail. So in other words, if we can get creative and drive 1,000 pre-orders, then that could become a 3 to 5,000 book purchase order across the retailers that we're pre-selling those books through. Same thing works at the bigger levels too, right? 5,000, 10,000 books pre-sold. And now you're looking at retailers almost clamoring to get as much inventory as they can because we're signaling demand through purchasing of the book in advance of its release.
So it's like the compound effect, essentially, of just compounding that growth, and then it naturally layers on top.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I guess the thing to take away from this is if somebody comes to me and says, hey, can you help me out? I self-published my book. It's been on Amazon for 2 months and I'm just not seeing any traction.
Yeah.
The answer is probably not, because we would have to do something to call it either an edition or a version, get ahead of that pre-launch by a matter of months, execute a strategy that's going to drive the initial demand until we get that natural lift through organic exposure and so forth. So there's not really a magic wand other than just paying for promotion. If you skip this of signaling the demand before the book's actually out. And there's, you could find analogies in other industries for this, but I think with authors in the self-publishing space, it's common to think, okay, it's done. Great, let's put it online. Hey, friends, guess what? I wrote a book. I call that the Spider-Man. Like, you pop out of nowhere. Hey, I haven't told you anything, but now my book's out and go get it. Whereas the better way to do it is to build up and to incorporate people in the process and let them know what's happening and then give them a way to pre-order it. And if we're talking about the best strategy, it's pre-selling bulk books ahead of time. Hey, if you buy 10 copies of my book, you'll get this training course. If you pre-order 25 copies, I'm going to get on a one-to-one strategy call with you and focus on your business. And if you buy 250 copies, I'm going to come to a keynote. Everybody in your organization is going to get a copy of the book, and we're going to have a really amazing interactive experience. I'm just paraphrasing, but now you're chipping away at 10, 25, 250 books per purchase. And that's where we get the real amplification. Because just now put yourself in the position of a retailer. Say we've got Paul's book coming out. Let's say it's the wedding planning book. It's 3 months before release date. I'm looking at the numbers and saying, oh my God, people are ordering hundreds of copies of this book 3 months before the release date. All right, let's buy 5 times that amount, because clearly we're going to need to keep up with demand. Now, whether or not you do keep up with demand is a whole nother topic, but that's how you get the big orders. And then, of course, you need a strategy to sell through those remaining books to end customers as well. And then the full strategy has been unfurled.
That's really solid advice. And anyone listen to this, just 100% listen back to that part of it, because that strategy in itself is the way to go and launch a book. And, you know, Jesse's just given that strategy away for free. So go and take as much as you can from that stuff, 100%. And we apologize if there was a little bit of crackling as well. I know you were in full flow there as well, so I wanted to make sure we kept going as well, even though the Wi-Fi was cutting out slightly. So Jesse, I'm curious as well, right? You're technically in a slightly more traditional niche, right, than some of the people we have on the show. But where do you think the next 5 years of marketing is heading?
For book marketing?
Yeah. Like for book marketing, or how book marketing will be part of the next 5 years of marketing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a couple of thoughts on that. One, the beautiful thing about a book for marketing purposes is it is all content. If once you've got the book, you've got, let's say, 50,000 words of content to use for marketing. And so this is another kind of counterintuitive approach, but you could use all of the content in the book as your outbound marketing in bite-sized pieces. You could take, a chapter at a time. We've got an author wrote a book, Start from Zero, on launching a business, read each chapter on video, and then would sort of tell a little aside or tell a little story. And literally the entire book, you could watch him read the entire book for free on YouTube. But guess what? Still selling thousands of books, because people want the full experience. They want to have it once they're getting value. So if you can share, if you can bite-size the value and the ideas and the concepts and the strategies in the book, and use that as your tip of the spear to reach new people, then you could set up, a 6-month marketing campaign almost ahead of time that's just dripping out the content in different ways, different channels for weeks and months after the launch. So I think over the next 5 years, we'll see more. It's interesting. Like you said, I just shared a great strategy for free. Yeah, exactly. Everybody should be sharing their great strategies for free, because that's how you know the person knows what they're talking about. And then you want the book, and then you want whatever it is that you can do with them. So I think that approach to marketing, of really giving value and helping achieve incremental results, is the best marketing, versus a convincing approach of like, if you don't get my book, you're not going to know how to make $1 million a year, and you're going to miss out on how to have strategic partnerships. That's lack type of marketing, instead of, here's a strategy to get a strategic partnership to promote your book. Now go use it. Hit me up on my Facebook and let me know how the results were. Now we're creating an interactive loop of giving people little strategies, and in the best case scenario, following along and supporting their journey, irrespective of when they pull out their wallet and purchase something for the first time. So that's my hope, that's how marketing progresses. And I think there'll be some other amazing evolutions of content delivery, perhaps including blockchain and different types of ways to reach new communities outside of traditional retail, as well as things like the Patreon or even OnlyFans model, where people can pay directly to a creator and receive exclusive content in addition to what's out there publicly for sale. So there's a lot of models to go progressively deeper with the author, with the creator. And I think we're still just at the early stages of like how that can all really look.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes, and the model of the strategy of breaking everything down in bite-sized pieces as well. Like as you were telling me that, I was like, right, cool, yeah, I can see the flow of how we're going to do that and break all that down for
I'll give
our
you
own
one
stuff.
more, right? If you've got the audiobook, what we love to do is take 2 to 3 minute segments from the audiobook, create a motion graphic or an audiogram. So now you've got the waveform, you've got the text of the book, you've got an image of the author and the book, and maybe a headline. Now that little piece of content, that's great social media content. But what is it? It's literally just an excerpt from the audiobook turned into a video asset and then shared out. You can share it out and just post it, but the next level strategy is you post that content and then you boost it or target it to the specific reading audience that you want to reach. So if you're doing a book on, was it wedding dresses?
Back then, it was it was called the Toss the Tiara book. So it was all the questions that we did in our show, and then it was like basically any question that you would have about a wedding, it was in that.
So there you go. You had what, 50, 60 questions that were answered. There's 50, 60 audiograms where you ask and answer each question. Each one of those stands on its own as a little bite-sized piece of information. Each one is boosted and promoted to people that are in a demographic of getting married or that have indicated that they're recently engaged. And now each of those pieces of content points to a sales page for the book where you can not only buy the book, but maybe you can buy 10 books and get the complete guide to an amazing wedding, 25 books to get a one-on-one consultation to put all these things into practice, maybe 100 books and you'll go on site and help them plan something magical for their wedding. And I just mapped out in high level terms a strategy to take that type of content, target it to the people that would want it, lead them to a next step to get fully informed, and then perhaps take a larger offer than just pre-ordering the book.
Yeah, and anyone listening to this right now is like, wow, Jesse just made it sound so easy, and that's because you've stayed in your lane over the years, right? And you're not like, oh, cool, I'm going to do this week and this week. You're like, I've seen the patterns, I've seen what works, and I know that works. So now I can just apply the same principles and frameworks over and over again.
You just touched on my favorite part of this business. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, but I've been a publisher for 7 years instead of 1 to 2 years and everything else I've been involved in, because every new book is its own creative project. So yeah, I'm refining the approach that can work overall for almost any type of book, particularly nonfiction that drives a business outcome, and applied it now to 120 plus use cases. In other words, our authors. And so each one sharpens the edge. Each one I learned some new little adjustment that can help improve the overall results. And that's also part of our value proposition is, people want to publish with us because they see the results hitting the shelves, hitting the charts. And when you trace it back far enough, you watch an interview like this, I'm fine to share exactly what we're doing. Doesn't mean it's easy to recreate, far from it, but I can tell you the strategy. That's cool.
Yeah. So powerful. Like just give, and help enough people get what they want, and you get what you want. I think that's the famous quote.
Well, that's our partnership model. Just to touch briefly on our publishing model, we do 50% net royalties. And that evolved in such a way where we each have the same incentive to sell the next book. Like when I signed my first publishing deal in Southeast Asia for Lifestyle Entrepreneur, I got 10% royalties paid 1 year later. Now, at some point when the initial enthusiasm wears off, hey, I've got a book that's coming out. How much incentive do I have to go sell the next book if I'm going to get $1.20 12 months later type of thing? Whereas with a 50-50 royalty share, sure, let's spend some time and energy and do a massive book promotion, because not only is that going to drive book revenue, but you can see how it's going to help build the business. And that's the game I love to play with authors, and the alignment of incentives to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, it's really, really strong stuff there. Listen back to this if you just listen to this right now. And talking about that giving mentality, This is a question that we ask everyone who comes on the show: is what do you want to be remembered for when you die?
Yep, I've actually thought about this one, and you could see it in our catalog. My personal approach, not to make it about me, because it really is about our authors and what they're doing, but in sum total, we're building a library of content that is experience-based, validated in the marketplace, and fun to read, such that people that have questions on becoming an entrepreneur, optimizing their health and wellness, achieving personal growth milestones will have resources. And by the time I'm off this earth, those will be distributed and available in such a way that anybody can find them, anybody can start getting value, and I won't be needed to drive the sales and the potential from those, but rather that there's now a record of actionable information and advice that people can avail themselves of.
Yeah, and I like what was in your bio as well, changing the world with your words.
And we're the publisher for the passionate, as you can see.
Yeah. Tell me about that. So is that a tagline that you've used for a long time, or is that something fairly recent?
I'd say the last couple years at least. I just love the passion of entrepreneurs, the passion of health and wellness experts, and the passion of people that are in personal development and in spiritual type of topics. So we're their publisher, we're their publishing partner, so that their passion can amplify. In terms of change the world with your words, I just like a good turn of a phrase. I've got a whole book of one-liners, I guess.
Oh, I love it. I love it. A big fan of that as well. So just before we wrap up today as well, Jesse, what is one quick win that people can use to amplify their business today?
Sure. I would say take a piece of paper, write 1 to 10. What are 10 different bite-sized strategies that you can use to help your potential clients in a way that you can deliver it in 5 minutes or less? Write a little sentence for what each of those are, and then use that as your content calendar for the next month or two. Either do a video or write an article or create something that expounds on each of those 10 points. And then after you share it, just say, if you want to learn more or work directly, get in touch. If you do that 10 times, I would almost guarantee that you start to get new clients and that people start to interact with you in a different way if you're leading with, bite-sized actionable strategies that lead back to the more full experience with you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That's fantastic. And finally, Jesse, what 7-figure entrepreneur would you nominate to be on the show next?
I would say I'm going to go with Dane Maxwell. I mentioned his book, Start from Zero. He also founded the foundation, helped hundreds of people start SaaS businesses, software businesses. And it's an interesting case study with what he did with his book. There's an entire resource, and his book is generally available for free, and yet it still sells and it positions him in a great way. So I think you'd enjoy that conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And finally, where can people find out more about you and Lifestyle Entrepreneur Press?
Sure. LifestyleEntrepreneursPress.com. Maybe we can link it up. Just Google me, Jesse Krieger. There's tons of stuff out there I've put out there. And if you're interested in talking about publishing, you know who to reach out to.
Fantastic. Jesse, appreciate you so much sharing so much value today as well. It's been phenomenal. You've been listening to the Amplify to 7 Figures podcast with me, Paul Ace, and my amazing guest, Jesse Krieger. Boom, boom, boom. Remember, guys, amplify your business and amplify your life. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Amplify to 7 Figures podcast. To access the show notes, episodes, and this month's giveaway, head over to www.amplifyto7figures.com. Remember, amplify your business, amplify your life.